This would take him down. And then Angle again. This time with the ref, I guess he'd be revived, or he'd be able to he'd be recover enough to make the count. But yeah, he'd hit another spear and he'd go for the cover on Angle, and then he'd kick out once again. This one was actually a surprising kick out, because at this point you think, okay, like at least in this kind of match, like I don't know, you'd think in this one it'd be like, the second finisher that's hit like would definitely be enough for the win. So when he kicked out here, back at this time watching this, like going back to 02, I may have thought, oh God, Angle might win this thing here. Like Edge might be the one who gets his head shaved bald. So then Angle would hit the angle slam. Or, well, actually, no. First, he'd hit a spear, and then he'd hit the angle slam on Edge. Then he'd go for the cover, and then he would get a 1, 2, and then a kick out from Edge. So, yeah, we've seen a kick out of a spear here, and then the angle slammer. So then Angle would try to go for the ankle lock again, and then Edge would push him off the ropes and then get him into a small package as he bounced off the ropes, and he would get a 3 count, and then Edge would win the match, which would mean that Kurt Angle would be the one getting his head shaved bald. I thought this was a great match, best of the night by far. Really enjoyed it. Edge would pick up the win, 15 minutes and 30 seconds. Following the match, Kurt would try to attack Edge, but Edge would fight back and hit him with the execution. He'd bring him up to where the barber's chair was located up by the entranceway, but Angle would escape and run away. Then we'd have Booker T at the Marriott in the bed with the girl from earlier in her hotel room, because she had given him the keys to the room or whatever. And she'd ask him to turn the lights out, and he'd hear Goldust's voice telling him that he wants him to leave the NWO and come back to him. Then Booker would leave the ring with his ass showing. Yup. This was a segment on the pay-per-view. The next we would have Michael Cole and Taz again previewing the upcoming Hell in a Cell match between Triple H and Chris Jericho. So the next match would be the Hell in a Cell match. Triple H, Chris Jericho. Well, WrestleMania rematch, I guess. I mean, they had the match once in between this, but this would be the second pay-per-view match between the two this year. So this would begin with Triple H getting the early hand, hitting a Harley Race-like high knee and a back body drop on Jericho. He then hit a series of punches and tossed Jericho to the outside. They both try to grind each other's faces up against the cage, with neither man being able to do so the match would head back into the ring. Jericho would catch Triple H with a flying forearm, and from here, Jericho would try to get an advantage, but Triple H would fight back. On the outside, Triple H would ram Jericho's head first into the cell on both sides, then send Jericho back first off of the cell, and would hit him with the clothesline. Jericho would noticeably noticeably begin to start bleeding from underneath his left arm. Then Triple H would be in control for a while until Jericho would send Triple H over the top rope. Then Jericho would try to Irish whip Triple H, but Triple H would reverse and send Jericho into the steel steps. He'd then take apart the steps and try to pile drive Jericho on top of them, but Jericho would counter and catapult Triple H into the cell. Triple H would then start bleeding from the forehead. Jericho would then grab a ladder of all weapons and use it on Triple H. Triple H, outside of the ring, would try to Irish whip Jericho, but Jericho would reverse it, sending him into the cell. And then Jericho would grab the ladder, and Triple H would grab a chair. Jericho would charge at Triple H with the ladder in hand, and Triple H would smack him with the chair, sending the ladder back into his face. He'd also hit Jericho in the back with the chair as well. A bit later, Chris Jericho would grab the steps and try to hit Triple H with them, but Triple H would get him with a drop toe hold, sending Y2J forward, landing face first onto the steps. Then he'd follow up with a neck breaker on Jericho. He'd chuck the steel steps at him. Triple H would go back outside and hold Jericho up on his shoulder and ram Jericho's head into the cell. Then the match would go back in the ring. Jericho would charge at Triple H, and Triple H would send him into referee Tim White, who takes a really bad bump into the cage. JR would point out that Tim White was the one with the key to the cell, which kind of gives away what's going to happen later, basically. But Jericho would then crack Triple H over the head with a chair. He'd go for a cover, but there's no official to make the count. Jericho, who's frustrated by this, would grab Tim White, who was trying to recover on the outside, and would throw him into the cage and beat him up. Bolt cutters would be used to open the cell, and officials and trainers would then enter to check on Tim White. Triple H would hit Jericho with a spine buster. Then Triple H would grab the sledgehammer and hit Jericho in the head with it. He'd go for the pin, but once again, there's nobody to make the count. Jericho, in the meantime, would buy the time to make it out of the ring and escape through the open door. Triple H would then walk toward the door, and Jericho would swing the door at him. Then the fight would go to the outside of the cell, so it'd be hell out of the cell, I guess you could say. They'd make their way over to the announcer's table area, and Triple H would drop Jericho with the DDT through the Spanish announcer's table. After this, Triple H would grab a barbed wire 2x4, which was hidden over by the timekeeper's table. That's been done so many times, especially in some of the previous Hell in a Cell matches, that even ones that we've reviewed on this program before. I don't know what it is. It's especially with those ones with Mick Foley, it's there's always that barbed wire 2x4. It's hidden over by the timekeeper's table. So yeah, I don't know how many times it's been that I've seen this at this point here, but getting back into this, Jericho would see this and climb to the cell to get away from Triple H, and Triple H would try to hit Jericho with it on the way up. Triple H would toss the 2x4 up on the top of the cell, which is foolish on his part, because that would mean as soon as he gets up there, Jericho could then grab it and then use it on him, which is exactly what happens. Both guys would now be on the roof of the cell. Chris Jericho put Triple H in the walls of Jericho, and Mike Chioda, who was taking over as official in this match now, would actually scale the cell and make his way to the top. Got to give him his fair due for that one. Got to give him his props. Triple H would break out of it and try to hit Jericho with the pedigree on the roof, but then Jericho would counter with a back body drop on top of the cell roof. This, however, would not give way and break, much like it had in the past Hell in a Cell matches with Mick Foley. But Triple H would get back up with the 2x4 in hand and hit Jericho over the head with it. He covered Y2J for the pin, but he'd kick out. He then hit Jericho this time with the pedigree on top of the cell and pinned Jericho for the win. Overall, it was a pretty good Hell in a Cell match. I think it's a shame Jericho, he got the win over Triple H the one time, on that SmackDown, which gave him the chance to go up against Hogan that one time for the title. But I don't know. I really feel like he could have maybe needed the win here. I think maybe it would have been good to see him go over here. I don't know why, but I guess actually I do know why. It's because Triple H had won at Mania, and I guess it just felt like Jericho could have maybe used the win in the more significant setting. Because as I said, there was a SmackDown match, which he got the assist from to pick up that win, but I don't know. With it being pay-per-view and whatnot, I thought maybe, on a bigger stage, it could be good for Jericho to pick up the win. But whatever, I guess. It was still pretty good. So Triple H would win 24 minutes, 31 seconds. Longest contest of the night. 3.5 stars this one would get from me. So then after this, we cut backstage where we see Kurt Angle still trying to run away from Edge following his loss earlier in the night, where if he lost the match, with it being a hair versus hair match, by rule, he would have to have his head shaved bald. This was funny stuff. This is also what I was getting at earlier with how good this feud was and how, you'd had the competitive aspect of it in the ring, but then you'd have the entertainment side of it as well with the segments. So then we would have a really weird WWE promo with this man and woman getting it on in a car with the old Mark Henry Sexual Chocolate theme song playing as this was going on. Don't know what that was all about. Could have done something else. I think some of the other little vignettes or promos or whatever you want to call it, videos, whatever, for WWE, I thought some of the other ones that they had done were, fine, but I didn't like this one as much. Really weird stuff. Then they go to WWE New York with Maven and Tori Wilson, who are on a date. And then next we would have the WWE World Tag Team Championships on the line. It'd be Billy and Chuck defending against Rikishi and a partner of Vince's choosing. So I guess it was time for a cool-down match between the Hell in a Cell and, what was supposed to be the main event, the Undisputed title match. So, but I guess a cool-down match, describing this is probably a really nice way of putting it. So the deal here is, as I said, Rikishi got to have a shot against Billy and Chuck for the tag team titles, and he'd have a tag partner, but it would be of Vince's choice. But for whatever reason, it would turn out to be Rico. Rico was the stylist of both Billy and Chuck. So essentially, this is a handicap match, because obviously Rico's not going to do anything to help Rikishi win because he's on Billy and Chuck's side. So this is kind of like a theme of the show, though. Like, this is like the third time tonight that we've had a match where there's like some kind of disadvantage at hand of some kind. Like, whether it was like the tag team match with like the Hardys and like Brock and Heyman, it's like, even then it's like, it was basically just 2-on-1 because Brock was basically doing the work. Heyman was just in there like, to like just for little parts. But yeah, so there's that. Then there's like the actual 2-on-1 handicap match with like Flair, Big Show, and Austin. And then like here you got like this tag team title match even, or it's just like essentially a handicap match. So I don't know what's going on with that. In terms of the match, though, I'm not going to go into too much detail about it because honestly, there's really not that much to say. Basically, it was everything that I've described it as being so far to this point. Then Rico in the end would try to get involved and deliver a kick to Rikishi, but would miss and hit Chuck. And then Rikishi would hit Rico with a kick and would pin Chuck. And Rikishi would win the tag team title belts basically on his own. So him and Rico would technically be the tag team champions, but Rikishi would win the match for his team on his own, basically. But yeah, this is bad. What can I say? Half a star from me. Rico and Rikishi would win the tag team titles. 3 minutes, 50 seconds. Just complete waste. The next Edge would be in the back. He'd still be chasing after Kurt, and this time would find him, but Kurt would hit him over the head with a garbage can lid. He'd then bring Edge out to the entranceway, and he'd have a microphone in his hand and say that he's going to shave Edge's head bald, even though it was supposed to be Angle getting shaved bald because Angle was the one who had lost the match. Angle would throw Edge into the barber's chair, but then Edge would get Kurt in a sleeper hold, which would put him to sleep, pun intended. He'd place Kurt in the barber's chair, and the head shaving would begin. Edge would then give Kurt one of the worst haircuts I've ever seen. And then afterwards, Edge with the microphone would say that now instead of chanting "you suck," they could now chant "you're bald." And when the music would hit, the crowd would indeed chant "you're bald." And JR would hit Kurt with the line of, he's got two things going for him. He sucks and he's bald. Great line from I'm not going to say one of the greatest. JR for me is the greatest announcer of all time. So then here we'd have the main event of the evening. It would be for the WWE Undisputed Championship. It would be Hollywood Hulk Hogan defending against The Undertaker. Before the match, Undertaker would make his way to the ring, just straight walking down there. Didn't have his motorcycle because I guess that was destroyed, even though he had another motorcycle, like for that one Raw where he tied Hogan to it and he just rode around the building with him dragging on the ground and whatnot, so whatever, I guess. But he'd entered to a new theme song at the time titled Dead Man, which is basically an instrumental version of You're Gonna Pay. Pretty lame, but You're Gonna Pay, of course, is a classic, but coming out here to this theme is a massive downgrade from Brolin, for sure. But before the bell would sound, Undertaker would try to gain the edge. Taker would whip Hogan with Hogan's weight belt that he was wearing, but Hogan would no-sell it. But then Hogan would end up whipping Taker with it, and then the match would get underway. Hogan and Taker would spend the early part of this match fighting on the outside. Then they get back in the ring. Taker would go for the first big spot of the match, attempting to hit Old School. But Hogan would pull him down and crotch him up on the top. Then Hogan would go to the middle rope and would hit the superplex on Taker. I don't know, is it just me or is this really early like in the match for a spot like that? I don't know. It's like we're already like a few minutes in here and they're already going for a superplex. It's like, I don't know. That just seems a little premature for me. It seems like you need a little bit more suspense or got to do a little bit more than that to like do something or pull off a move like that, but whatever. Then afterwards, Taker would try to target the knee of Hogan. I guess he just decided that that's what he's going to do. Then Hogan would try to come back. He'd attempt to hit the leg drop, but Taker would block it and get Hulk into a single leg crab, a weak one at that. And then Taker would go for a big boot and would get crashed up on the top rope again. Then Hogan would get caught and hit with one of the worst choke slams of all time. And Taker would cover him and get a 2 count. Then it was time for Hogan